Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. I'm Cheryl Jennings. Today we've been talking about different types of adoptions. Families in the U.S. adopt more children from overseas than the rest of the world combined. But two countries that provide many of these orphans actually had to start clamping down last year. Guatemala, for example, suspended more than 2,000 adoptions to investigate possible fraud. And Vietnam put up a similar roadblock. Zain Verhi explains in this report he filed in May 2008.
This is the nursery that we've set up for the baby that we hope to adopt.
The perfect nursery, but a baby for Laura may never arrive from Vietnam. That's because an adoption agreement between Washington and Hanoi is falling apart.
How did you feel when you learned about what was happening?
My husband and I were absolutely devastated.
A State Department report warns of serious adoption irregularities in Vietnam. Forged documentation, mothers paid, coerced or tricked into giving up their children.
One child stolen from his mother is one too many.
The Vietnamese government denies the U.S. accusations and has slammed the door on adoptions September 1st. Last year, more than 800 children from Vietnam were adopted by parents like Laura here in the U.S.
It's hard to let it go. Because we know we can advocate for these children and we can make a real difference.
Private adoption agencies insist 99% of Vietnam adoptions are problem-free and want the agreement to stay.
Without it, I think children are going to be harmed, they're going to die needlessly, and there is going to be trafficking.
Similar fraud and corruption problems exist in Guatemala, where adoptions have also been suspended. The State Department says it sympathizes with families, but
No American family wants to adopt a child that was never truly an orphan and that has a family in Vietnam wondering what happened to him or her.
Laura understands, but she's still angry at them.
Adoptive parents have put a lot of emotional energy and a lot of financial resources into the process,
Including writing a personal letter to the Vietnamese government.
We'll make sure that our children receive the best education, that they grow up with a strong sense of pride in their Vietnamese heritage.
Well, joining me right now in the studio is Rachel Brewer. She's the International Program Manager at Adoption Connection, and you work with Lynn, Rachel.
Correct.
But on the international side, now we've seen the downside, but I know there's a huge upside.
There is, I think, for children, much like the foster care system in the U.S., children who remain in their home country in orphanages or institutions won't have the kind of life that they could if they were adopted and brought to the U.S.
Now, just from friends of mine who have adopted, I know it's a very rigorous process, right? So tell me about how that works.
It is a very rigorous process. With international adoption, not only do adopted parents need to meet criteria for their state, they also need to go through they need to meet criteria for the U.S. government as well as the governments for the other country. So it's a very bureaucratic process, it's a very paperwork-intensive process and a lengthy process.
So how long does it take?
It's different for every country. What we are finding is that with changes in international adoptions, Guatemala closing, Vietnam closing, China narrowed its eligibility requirements while increasing the length of time it takes to adopt in that country. It has definitely affected not only those specific countries, but other countries as well. And it could be between, I think on average, about 1.5 years to up to 2 years or longer for international adoption.
So that's got to be frustrating for a lot of parents, because you go see this baby you want to bring home, and then you have to basically starts to grow up.
Well, in most cases, that's the length of time till you get a referral. So it could be about 1.5 years till you get a referral for a specific child, and then there's the second timeline between that time and when you actually travel to adopt. That is a much shorter timeline. But any wait is going to be difficult, and the wait for the referral is particularly hard.
So for families who are serious about this, when they go overseas, for some of those waits, they have to be prepared to stay.
Correct. Every country is different in terms of their requirements. Some countries do require multiple trips. Some of those trips can last up to a month.
Wow.
It is a big commitment.
It's a commitment, especially if you've got a job and trying to manage your life, right?
Exactly.
Now, is China the biggest country for adoptions?
Currently, China is also is one of the largest. Guatemala was prior to it closing. As those countries change, other countries become more popular with larger adoption programs. Right now, Ethiopia is one of the largest programs.
And then how about when the kids do finally get to come home and be with their families? What sort of changes happen?
Well, there's always going to be that transition period from when the child leaves maybe an institution, an orphanage, or even a foster care system, and then coming home. So it's a transition because they're in a whole new environment. So there are definite education tools that we need to give our adoptive parents, how to transition that child in the home, how to incorporate their routines that they may have had in the orphanage or institution into their home lives to ease that transition. But it is often incredibly smooth transition, sometimes more difficult, but inevitably that child will transition to their new home and blossom into a outgoing, interactive child that they may not have been prior to coming home.
So your service will stay with that family and help guide them through this maze.
Absolutely,
All right.
absolutely.
All right, thank you so much, and thanks for the work you're doing. I appreciate it. All right, well, there's been so much information we've talked about today. It's all going to be on our website, and that is it for this edition of Beyond the Headlines. If you are looking for community resources in your neighborhood, dial 211 for help. It's that easy. And all of the contact information for the organizations we've talked with today on today's show, all of that and much more is available on our website at abc7news.com. Just click on the community page. Have a great week. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.